Hi everyone. Sorry for the delay in transmission there. I had a technical error, so that was completely my technical error. But welcome to you. I'm going to start again. So welcome to the Vision and Alignment and Goal Setting Workshop for 2025. It's a 1 hour masterclass, and it's our last one for the year. So it's really, really great to have you here today. We're operating in a webinar environment today. So shortly I'll be sharing the screen. Please feel free to use the Q&A functionality, of course, for questions. And towards the end, I'll invite you to come in and unmute and ask those questions. But I'll just go ahead now and share the screen so you can all, of course, see what I can see. And hopefully I won't lose you like I did last time. Excellent. So a warm welcome again, and I'll acknowledge country again. I'm on Wurundjeri country today, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I extend that respect to the land on which you may be coming from today. Today's masterclass is all about vision alignment and goal setting. And I wanted to bring this to you because it is coming towards the end of the year. And it's that time of the year where we start to think about, of course, closing off the year. So we might be a little bit tired. We might feel that final sprint of energy to kind of get things going. But at the same time, it's probably a good time to start thinking about next year. And if you haven't already, which I'm assuming many of you have already started doing that, and doing so in a way which is really purposeful. And I wanted to give you some tips and hints today around how you can do that with your teams. So we are talking about vision alignment and goal setting, of course. And I wanted to really think, get you, and I'd love you to pop this in the Q&A actually, or in the chat function. But what's the one word that you want your team to associate with 2025? Is it going to be excitement? Is it going to be opportunity? What is it that you want your team to associate? And I think in thinking about the next year, it's as much sometimes about what we've got to bed down and finish off. Often these strategic cycles don't go off the course of, or off the back of just 1 year. They often span multiple years. So it's not always going to be about growth and new things. It might also be about completing things and, and have a really practical sense to it. But just your own reflection, I guess, what's the one word that you want your team to associate with 2025? And what this one word does is it effectively sets an intention for us. It really helps us to think about, what is the intention that we're going into in the new year. And Jay, thank you. Jay's just put one in and she's saying alignment. And I think that that's a really good one. So, for you, it might be, as I said, opportunity. It might just be growth. It might be, continuing on to do the same things that we're doing. I think, though, setting that intention helps people to really think about connection into the new year. A new year is it's a new year. It's a date on a calendar, right? So we might have that view of, well, what's the difference between, November, December, January. Really, things continue on, particularly in strategic cycles. But psychologically, we know that, we do like to start the year with a fresh intent. It's why we've got things like New Year's resolutions, and whether you like them or not, we do get to start afresh. And I know that in your organisation, you might operate on financial years. You might have different kinds of years in terms of, different geographies, and they don't always operate on an Australian financial year or even calendar year. But whatever it is about setting in an intention and really thinking about what does that new year need to signify for us. I like the practice of adopting a deliberate word for the year, and you might also think about this practice as a deliberate word for your team. And I think it's important that you come up with it as a team rather than it be something that you create. I mean, you can create it and share it with the team, of course, but there is something quite powerful in the team engaging in that process together. So what's the one word? And we've got alignment, which might be a good one. The other thing that is important to do as we're thinking about really visioning and strategic alignment is thinking about what we want to achieve. So what is it? And I know that organisations come up with pages and pages of strategic plans and operating plans, whatever the language is that you might use in your organisation. I think all those things are absolutely valid. I think it's about getting crystal clear, though, on what it is that you want to achieve in 2025. What are the goals? What are the organisational goals, and what are your operational goals for your team if you operate in an organisation that's quite large? And then the other component to the clarity is, why do you want to achieve these things? And I think sometimes answering that why helps us as leaders to connect. We might go, oh, we want 10% growth next year, or we want, 500,000 more customers, or we want to expand our workforce, or we might want a better net promoter score, or we might want better employee engagement, whatever those metrics of success look like for you. I think the why, like, why do we want to achieve these things, almost tests that want. Why do we want that thing? Have we really thought specifically and deliberately about growth? Is it always about growth? Is it actually, as I said earlier on, about solidifying what's already there? So it's not only about what we want to achieve, but it's also, why do we want to achieve those things? And if you can engage in a process with your team, which, maybe opens up a conversation around this stuff, it becomes really powerful around connecting the team to the vision. Because if you can connect the team to the vision, you've got a much better chance of connecting them to the organization, but also to each other. It's a vision and goals then that we share collectively. We are really clear then around our purpose, and we can be very intentional about why we turn up and why we do what we do every day. So in clarifying this vision, we really want to think about, what do we want to achieve for the following period, and we're picking the calendar year, and why we want to achieve those things. Now, in doing the what and in doing the why, another question I have for you all as leaders is this going to inspire and mobilize the team? With our vision, have we clearly thought about, is it going to be big enough? Maybe is it too big? Is it too aspirational? Is it not going to be within our reach because of our capabilities as a team at the moment, because of our resourcing, because of our abilities? So the reflection opportunity for you right now, and you might want to be jotting these questions down as you go, and of course you can access the masterclass straight after our session today. But is this vision going to inspire and mobilize your team? It's one thing to inspire them, and we all love being inspired. To mobilize them, though, means that they can see it within reach. It's not too aspirational where they go, oh, we're never going to be able to hit, a 50% growth on where we are today, or we're never going to achieve a net promoter score of whatever it is that we might want to achieve because it's too aspirational. So is it going to inspire them? That requires it to be, maybe have a stretch and maybe really be connected to purpose. But the other part of that, are they going to be mobilized? Are they going to be able, based on their capability, their skill and their will, really, are they going to be able to really enact that vision and implement it? And that's the other part of that, setting that clarity. Now, I want to get down into some practical stuff. So far we've talked about achieving that clarity of vision. We've talked about the what and the why in particular, and really connecting the team to the vision to help them be able to connect in with purpose. Some really practical ways, though, to do that, because what we've talked about, some of them can be classified as motherhood kind of statements, and statements that could appear in any organization's strategic plan. We find that the rubber hits the road when we start talking in the language of objectives and key results. And so that's language you might use in your organization in terms of OKRs. You might call them KPIs, key performance indicators. There's all sorts of language. The main thing here is to really translate that vision into some achievable results. And so we want these objective key results to be aspirational. We want them to have a little bit of stretch. If there's not enough stretch, then people won't be able to see their growth in that. And also as an organization, you won't be able to potentially grow as far as you want to and need to. We want them to be transparent. So we want others across the team to understand individual goals, and we want other teams to understand them too. So particularly if you're working in a large organization with different teams and different departments, you want to make sure that your team and your team's goals are understood. So I was actually speaking to a chief of staff this morning for a large organization, and they run the finance area in this business. And one of the aspirations they have for some work they want to do early in the new year is to ensure that their goals as a finance team are transparent across the organization. Now, finance goals usually they are shared because we might have a revenue target or an EBITDA target or profit, whatever it is, the way that you measure financial success in your organization. But you want to make sure that people understand that across the organization and that those goals are understood but also achievable, and that each part in that organization understands the role that they play in contributing to the success of that particular goal. And then finally, you want it to be time bound. And so lofty goals that don't really have a fixed time in place are unlikely to be achieved, right? So we want them to be time bound. We want the goal to be quite specific, so we want to achieve this particular success outcome in 3 months, 12 months, 6 months, or 3, 6, 12 rather, whatever it may be. And then we want them to be reviewed regularly, because we know that what gets managed and what can be measured rather gets managed. So if we've got those steps in place so we can continue to measure those things, we're more likely to achieve them. So that's an introduction to OKR. I'm sure you've seen versions of it. You might have some different language in your organization. Now, here are some examples of a good OKR and one that's not so good. We might start over on the right-hand side. So if we just had our objective as sales, that would be pretty useless, actually. Our key results might be, find more customers. That's always nice. That might contribute to more sales. Sell more of the products. We might have a warehouse full of stuff that we might want to move. We might want to increase our sales numbers. They're all things that might contribute to sales, but we don't exactly know what specifically we want to do and by how much we want to do it. So you can see that what's on the left-hand side is a bit more descriptive. And so our objective there is to increase customer satisfaction. Our key results, so the way that we will go about increasing that customer satisfaction, is to achieve a Net Promoter Score of 75. Now, what we don't know about that key result indicator is whether it is an increase on last year, whether it's staying the same, and that might also be useful to know that. That's how we could enhance it. The second key result there is reduce average support response time to under 2 hours. And so if we reduce it to under 2 hours, we know that we're increasing customer satisfaction. Now, presumably there might be some data from our customers that says, we've got to reduce it. We might also have some industry or benchmark data that also says, what customers are looking for that particular industry is under 2 hours. Under 2 hours still seems quite a lot, but that could be a service call. Hopefully it's not someone waiting on the phone for 2 hours. That would be a long time. And then the third one there is implement a customer feedback loop by Q3. So you can see here that this organization wants to implement customer feedback. They're saying by Q3, we're actually going to have a feedback loop, and that is our customers give us feedback and we are able to respond directly, for example. But hopefully you can see there's a key difference, and it's pretty easy. The one on the right-hand side is almost comical, actually, because it's so void of actuals, and we've just got a pretty useless objective there, which is sales. Now, you might want to increase your sales. There are different ways to do things. So without knowing whether we're increasing sales, whether we're increasing the value of each sale, whether we're increasing sales targets, we have no idea what is actually meant here. So objective key results need to be quite specific, as it says there, and we want them to be measurable. So we want them to have some element of metric associated with them. All right, we'll keep moving. So that's OKRs. I've got some examples here of OKR alignment. So I guess, part of the OKRs, as we talked about earlier on, if people aren't understanding, in particular at a department level, what their particular contribution is to the OKR, we might find that there's a lack of alignment, and we might find with that lack of alignment, there's lack of accountability and lack of commitment to that particular goal. So we have a company objective here. So we've picked a non-alcoholic beverage company. And we're saying that as a company in this space, we want to launch a market-leading product in the non-alcoholic beverage category. Now, you can see there on the left-hand side that all of the departments, and it's not extensive, there might be some more for the organisations you work in, there might be some more departments, but you can see that each of these departments have a part of that company objective that they would need to contribute to in order for there to be some alignment with the company reaching that goal. And I won't read them all out because obviously you can do that. But you can see marketing's got their OKR, sales, product, finance, etc., people and culture, IT, even digital, and we could add more to that list. But the purpose here is that without that alignment, it's going to be pretty hard for the company to achieve that goal, because launching a market-leading product in that non-alcoholic beverage space is probably going to be a large task, unless you are maybe a small boutique player that's just new to the market, where you've got, like a startup, 3 or 4 people doing all of those roles. But let's assume that this organization is well established, that it's got these departments in place, that it already is playing in the space. It's probably going to have these departments that can have quite a very focused OKR in response to that company objective. And without it, teams are not going to know what they need to do. Now, we could have just stuck to marketing, sales, and product, because they're probably the ones that are going to be more directly involved in launching this product and getting it to market. But let's not forget our enabling areas, as I like to call them. So people and culture, IT, digital, finance, another team, procurement might be in there, risk and strategy, compliance, legal. Let's not forget our friends in all of those spaces. So all of those different areas will likely have something to do with that OKR. And without that alignment, particularly when you're thinking about visioning for, the next period, and we're talking about the calendar year today, if you're not getting your whole organization on board with what that particular OKR is, you are going to impact your ability to be able to deliver it as an organization. So ensure that there is that alignment. I'm going to share with you some ways to achieve that alignment. Most organizations that are large enough will have some established processes. So often strategies are built bottom up, and so then all organizations can see what's involved. But if you're a small to medium enterprise, you might not have that, which I'll go through with you around how you can do it. So what are some things that can get in the way of alignment? So we've talked just before about all the areas must have a say in it, really, not so much a say in that company objective, but knowing their role in setting that objective and what role they play in enacting it and implementing it. But there's stuff that gets in the way, and these challenges are true, I think, irrespective of what size of organisation you might be in. So if we are vague in our OKRs, our organisational key results, and objective key results, rather, if we're vague in them, or let's say they're only known by certain, maybe the leaders, the senior leaders in the organisation, then that's going to get in the way of it being able to be aligned across your organisation. Sometimes we overload our teams with too many OKRs. So sometimes we bite off more than what we can chew. We haven't appropriately timed the way that things are going to roll out. So that could get in the way, and it could become a significant challenge. And then the other one is focusing on outputs instead of outcomes. So, we might say, yeah, we do want an increase in sales, but if that's our output, but then we're not really able to articulate the outcome, which is the why, it becomes really, really cloudy, and it impacts people's ability to actually really hear and understand what that OKR is. So if they're challenges for you, then, hopefully you're thinking about some things, and you can see the solutions there. But effectively start small. 3 to 5 OKRs per team is probably enough, particularly over a 12-month period. You want to make sure that the 3 to 5 are punchy, and that it makes me think about the story of the big rocks and the little rocks, which I'm sure you're all familiar with and that you've all heard. If not, just chuck it into YouTube, Big Rocks, Little Rocks video, and you'll see a short tutorial. But effectively, it's picking the things that are going to make the biggest impact and have the biggest impact, and really focusing on those. So if you're going to say, well, we're going to pick 3 to 5 OKRs per team, what are the things that are going to make the biggest difference to your team being able to contribute to that company objective? What is it? Hold regular check-ins. And we saw before that one of the things that will help an OKR to be successful is those regular check-ins. So being very specific around what you're measuring, when you're measuring it, what does success look like? If it's a strategy that has a long run in place, and by that I mean something that's not able to be achieved quickly, having regular check-ins means that you can space out the achievement of that particular objective. So let's say, it's to achieve a 70% increase in sales, massive, next year. Rather than waiting until the team or teams hit that 70% increase, what if you were to regularly check in, and every time the team increase it by 10%, you celebrate that? It's not the 70% that you're after, but having that incremental check-in and that incremental sense of achievement can really help to boost the team's morale and engagement through this process. And holding that regular check-in means that rather than just reporting back on how you're going, you're also celebrating those wins and milestones, which is massive. Encouraging feedback and iteration. I think teams that are able, particularly on the iteration side, that are able to adapt what they're doing. And even though we set these strategies and goals in place, it doesn't mean that they can't be changed. It doesn't mean, maybe the overarching goal's not changed, but our way of achieving it might adapt and change based on market and what's happening. So encouraging that feedback and iteration means that you're not blindly still committing to a particular goal that you've got as a team. You are still checking in and really thinking about, is this fit for purpose? Is this the best way for us still to achieve this thing? We know, and it's across every single industry now, that we're managing in very, very ambiguous times, and things are changing rapidly and quickly. We're responding. And I think, organizations have developed a far greater capability in being able to respond because we've had to do it so many times over the last few years. So encouraging that feedback and iteration means that you're still working on the right stuff and you're still measuring the right stuff. Now, a question for you, and again, I'd welcome you to pop something in the question and answer space, but what's the biggest challenge for your team in achieving that OKR alignment? Is it that you're not communicating, your strategies far and broad enough in your organization? Is it maybe that as if you're a leader, have you got a really good sense of what they are, but have you road tested them with your team and made sure that they understand it and they understand that what they're contributing rather to that particular OKR? Does everyone understand their role? It would be like, putting on an amateur theatre production, and if you're in for impromptu, then go for it. I don't think that there's much practice and much discussion that needs to occur if you are happy for people to just riff off each other and for it to be quite organic. But I'm not sure that we run organizations that way, and with good reason. So we can do the impromptu stuff. I'd leave that for case study and when you want to do some scenario planning with your team. If you are serious about achieving that strategy, getting people aligned to the goals, and I think it is absolutely about being more deliberate and making sure that people clearly understand their role. What is their role in the production of your strategy for the following year, and do you have that alignment across your teams? Okay. Now, we've got this concept of effortless buy-in, and we want to make sure that our teams do buy-in. So we've talked about alignment, and I've spoken about alignment specifically on the objectives and key results. So that is, are we clear on what our strategy is? Are we clear on how we're measuring it? Effortless buy-in, though, is a little bit, we're kind of taking it up a level, and it's ensuring that it's more than alignment, it's commitment. And so I think with alignment is, for me, we're lockstep in terms of, walking side by side. We understand it, and we can keep pace with the other person, and it's kind of easy or easy-ish to follow that because we can see what we're doing and we follow. But with effortless buy-in, it's taking it up a level and it's getting that commitment, and it's ensuring that, yes, people are connected to our strategy, but they are fully accountable and they are committed to what our strategy is. And we start with the why, as always. It's a famous book, actually. Simon Sinek famously wrote Start With Why. And if you haven't gone on to his TED Talk, it's an oldie but a goodie. It's probably one of the most watched ones on TED, whether you like Simon's work or not. But he wrote a book called Start With Why. And we adopt that here. We start with purpose. So why are we setting out to do the thing that we're setting out to do in terms of our strategy? So we can say, we want to have this kind of impact. Again, we want to get these kinds of results, sales results, customer results, satisfaction results, engagement results, whatever it might be. But why? Why do we want to do that? And I think that why, it speaks to purpose, but it also speaks to impact. That thing that we are wanting to engage our teams in doing, why do we want them to do it? What's the broader benefit to those that we serve? and that's shareholders, the community, customers, whoever it is that's within our orbit. Then we outline the goals, and that's really the OKR that we've spoken about at length. So what are those goals? And then the how. And in the how, we want to explain the plan and the team's role. And we want the how to have an element of description and perhaps prescription. So if the team need to follow a particular method in order for the what to occur and for them to meet the what, how are they going to do it? And this is a place where leaders often can get caught, because in explaining the how, sometimes it requires, quite a bit of prescription, but sometimes it doesn't. And I think as a leader, you've got to be able to distinguish, is the how, does it just require some description so the team can then go off and work out how to do it? And presumably they're the subject matter experts in that space, and they know the processes and systems really well, and therefore they're well equipped to be able to define that how. Or is it that we need to be quite prescriptive? And I think it's an important distinction, and one that I would encourage you to really think about. Do you need to offer just the description, or also description and prescription? So if we can get the why, the what, and the how in place, then we've got an opportunity to create this effortless buy-in. Now, again, it's worthwhile just re-emphasizing the point. This effortless buy-in is going to go to accountability and commitment. And those two things are key to any team, but particularly teams that want to really move into that high performance space. Because as a team, if we can be committed and also have that accountability, we are more than aligned. We are invested and we're bought into that strategy, right? So we feel that it's an extension of us. And when people feel it's an extension of us, it's not just the organization that's developing, that individual then also develops and grows as a result of their contribution to this strategy and enacting the strategy. So this effortless buy-in, we really want to make sure that we've got that alignment there. And alignment is people just knowing what they need to do and it being very clear. And as we've talked about, well articulated and measured and reviewed regularly and all those kinds of things. This effortless buy-in takes it up a notch. And we are really, through this process of distinguishing the why, the what, and the how, we're really getting to that commitment and accountability as a team. Now, if we move to team alignment map, so we've talked about organizational alignment, and that is, when you've got all your departments in lockstep with what the strategy is and what they need to do. But for your own team at a local level, if you like, it's also important that you've got that alignment. And what that alignment looks like, there are some steps here which I've articulated for you, and hopefully that helps. But it's defining the what, which we've talked about. We talked about that in the effortless buy-in. So that's the goal. What are those goals? Then we need to define the who. Who is it that's going to actually have their name against that particular goal? It doesn't mean that we don't then have the accountability and commitment of the entire team, but we get into murky waters if we have a particular goal and then we say, oh, marketing team or finance team. We need to, spell it out in a little bit more detail. So we know who. Is it going to be the leader? Is it going to be our financial controller? Does it need to be the CFO? Is it going to be one of our business analysts? Perhaps it's in that team. So who? And specify who's the role or who's the person and what role do they have. The how we've just talked about. So that's your method. Do you need to be prescriptive or descriptive, or do you need to be both? And that's outlining that how. Then we've got our OKRs, which we've talked about. So objective key results, being very, very specific on what needs to be achieved by when, as we've talked about. At this point, it's worthwhile. So once we've identified up until step 4, we almost go back up to the list and then we check back with our overall OKRs. So steps 1 to 4 are really for your team, what you're doing within your team. Step 5 takes it back up a level and goes, well, now that we've identified all these things across our team, have we done a check to ensure that organisationally we are still aligned to our organisational goals? When you get down to team goals at a local level, there is a bit of a separation sometimes between what that overall organisational goal is and what the team goals are. And step 5 helps you just to get back aligned if there is a few too many steps, or if we've kind of become a little bit too distanced from what that organizational KPI is or OKR. So you want to check back. So you want to do that alignment, as a team, particularly if we're in an enabling function and maybe we're, far away from the product development and the sales and the marketing of the particular product. If we're thinking about our non-alcoholic beverage, little case study that we were looking at before, we want to make sure that we are still in alignment with what we've said that we're going to achieve. We want to represent this visually. And the way that I like to do this in the teams that I've led and the teams that I still work with these days is actually get a big piece of wall space if you can. You'll need some post-it notes. So you'll need, I've got one that I've written on today, but you'll need a good old trusty wad of post-it notes. And what you want to be able to do is on a wall actually map out what the strategies are. So your overall strategy, then you might want to put in your OKRs, so the objective key results for each area. And then if I'm doing this with my team or I'm doing it with one team, I then like each individual to actually list their OKRs, their individual things that they are responsible for, list them, and then align them to one of the overall company OKRs. That visual representation, what it'll do is a few things. It'll show you from an effort perspective where the majority of the team's effort is placed. So let's say you've got 5 OKRs that you're working through for that particular calendar year with your team. If you know that the majority of your team is only really focused on OKR 1 and 2, and 3 to 5 are kind of there, but there's not much that's happening because you don't have either the capability in the team or people haven't identified what they need to do with you, of course, as the leader, you can pretty much bet your bottom dollar there'll be a lot of focus going into OKR 1 and 2, but not so much 3 and 5. So that visual representation is really about where's the effort going, and do we have the right resources in the team? Do we have the right capability mix? Do we maybe need to second someone in or recruit someone to the team, or potentially not do one of the OKRs because we don't have that alignment? So it's worthwhile doing that. And I think the visual representation, whether you do it physically on a wall or whether you do it with an electronic tool, and there's plenty out there that will enable you to bring in, post-it notes electronically, representing it visually gets to see where the team's effort is going and is intended to go based on the KPIs and the goals. So I think representing it visually is super important. And then number 7, which is a really obvious one, but sometimes we don't do it, is get the team involved. So sometimes as leaders, we think, it's my responsibility to set the strategy, and it's my responsibility to set the OKRs, and it's my responsibility to measure performance. And yes, all of those things are true. But the more that you can get your team involved, the greater opportunity you've got for that continued buy-in and engagement. And as I mentioned before, that commitment and accountability piece, which is really, you want the team to be sharing that with you. Because if the accountability and commitment piece is only with you, you're going to have a really, really hard time achieving all that yourself. Whereas if you've got the team involved, you're going to have a much greater chance and opportunity to help them to align to purpose, understand what it is that you're doing, but also be committed. It'll make it much better for you as a leader to share that with them. So absolutely get the team involved. I'm just going to do a little check here and see that no, it's all good. I'll go to your questions in a moment once I stop sharing the screen. Now, the team health check. So when you are thinking about strategy and alignment with your team, one of the things that's going to be super, super important is making sure that your team is as healthy as it can be around these particular goals, and setting, not only setting the goals, but actually achieving what it is that you want to achieve. And I think that too often organizations look at this far too late. So if you can do a team health check, and you should be doing a team health check all the time, by the way, it would be like, not getting, if you know that you've got, a diabetes issue, let's say you're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, it would be like not getting your sugar levels checked regularly. That could spell a recipe for disaster for you. And so what you want to do, a team health check is no different. You want to make sure that you're thinking about these health metrics like a dashboard, and that you are thinking about these things, at least these 10 things, to really ensure that you've got the team health in place. And this will enable you to achieve that strategy and and visioning piece for this year, but also years to come. Is there alignment with purpose and the goals for the team? So we've talked about that at length today. Are they aligned? You'll do that through your OKRs, and you'll do that through really ensuring that you've got commitment and accountability. Team dynamics and relationships, are they as healthy as they can be? Now teams are not, you're not going to get everybody that loves each other in a team. That's probably naive actually to think that, but at the very least, do we have respect in the team? Do we understand our different working styles? And when we do understand our different working styles, it can reduce conflict, and it also helps to really, I guess, increase curiosity, which is what teams need more of. So team dynamics and relationships, we're not going to like everybody. That's just human nature. But do we at least understand our working styles, and can we leverage what we know then about our working styles to ensure that we've got a healthy team dynamic and healthy relationships? Role clarity and accountability. So that OKR exercise that I just talked to you about, and that visual alignment absolutely helps with point number 3. Is each individual clear on what they need to do, and are they accountable for achieving that? Performance and outcomes really speaks to our objective key results. When we are thinking about performance, what does that great performance look like? And are people understanding how they're going to be measured and what those outcomes are? Psychological safety and well-being, people can only do their best work when they feel safe to do so. And so this is going to be about sharing ideas, being able to put new ideas on the table without fear of retribution, knowing that you're in an environment where it's safe to speak up, not only about the work, but the way that we work. So it's a bit that, the actual work, but also the how we work. And well-being, are people empowered and enabled to be able to work in a way which supports their well-being? And burnout obviously comes into this, but as a leader, it goes without saying, this is about you setting that tone and ensuring that you're looking after yourself, that you're sharing with your team how you're doing that, and hopefully being a role model in that space. Have you got the right skills in the team? So skill and will, in order to be able to do the work that you need to do. And I think that is about individual performance, but also collectively as a team. Have you got what it takes, or have you set your aspirations too high and therefore they're unachievable? Transparent communication and also transparent decision making is really important. That's going to help your team to be as healthy as it can be. So sharing what you can when you can, and also sharing the reason for your decisions. Sometimes, as leaders, yes, we've got the opportunity to make the captain's calls from time to time, but are we sharing why we're making those decisions with our teams? Is your culture, healthy? Is it as healthy as it can be? If not, why not? And really, then it goes to the team dynamics and relationships, really. But your culture needs to be healthy in order for there to be that strategic alignment, but also every chance of your team achieving that strategy. And the values, are they in place? And are they well understood? Is there an opportunity for people to align their values with the organisational's values? If not, does that create a problem? It's worthwhile having a think about that. Last month, the masterclass that we ran was called You Can't Say That, and it was all about feedback. Jump into that masterclass, because that'll give you a whole heap of information about point 9 here. As a team, in order to have a healthy team, you've got to be able to jump into feedback, and knowing how to jump into that feedback in a healthy way as a team. And so what are your feedback mechanisms? What are your ways of working around giving each other feedback and being able to celebrate, when things go really, really well, but also have a conversation when things don't go so well? So what are your mechanisms in place as a team? And then finally, the tools and resources, whether that's training around any of these areas, whether it's, some good books and articles that you might want to share as a leader, but also encourage others to share in the team. It's really important to have these components in terms of being able to have the healthiest team that you can to be able to achieve the strategy. Here are some, things that you might want to kickstart 2025 with, and there's 5 things I want to share with you here. So it is always worthwhile reflecting on the year that was. And most the work that I'm doing with leaders at the moment in finalising, closing out 1 year and actually setting their strategy intention for the following year always has this as number one on our agenda. And what we usually do around this is we get individual team members to do an individual reflection, and then we do it collectively as a team. So what's worked well, and what are those lessons learned? Defining a clear and inspiring vision for 25. And of course, today's been all about that and really having that clarity around those objective key results in particular. Fostering connection and reigniting team spirit, it really goes to the team health check that I just spoke about and ensuring that that's there. It's going to be really hard to achieve the strategy without it. Another idea for you that you might want to be thinking about as you're looking at 2025 is to host an idea sprint. And these can be really short, sharp, 60 minute to 2 hour sessions where you're getting the team absolutely involved and engaged on some ideas. Now, this is not about promising the world and then not being able to deliver it, or these ideas not making their way into the strategy. It just might be to spark some new ideas. So we know that teams that, have greater abilities to be innovative, collaborative, solve problems together, be curious, overall have better business results. So hosting an idea sprint might be the way to do it. It's a really fun way to get the team engaged. And of course, it doesn't leave, that burden with you. Empower individual and team growth. So we've talked a lot about the team today, and I guess implied in that is the individual growth. But absolutely, be having conversations with your team members individually and collectively about how the strategy will serve both that individual growth, but also the team growth and how it empowers them to do that. And finally, establish rituals to sustain, purpose and also momentum. We talked earlier on, or I mentioned to you earlier on, these regular reviews, and whether that be weekly or quarterly, even monthly instead. But if you've got some rituals in place to really sustain this purpose and momentum, it means your strategy is always alive. And I hear a lot of leaders say, oh, we did the strategy, we did it 18 months ago. We know that we're halfway through our strategic cycle, but people lose connection and focus on what that strategy is. It kind of is done. It goes into a metaphoric drawer, or usually into a spot on shared drives. And we don't really go back to it unless we've got a report on it, maybe an annual report or to leaders. And what I'm encouraging you to do there is make it a living document. And by establishing some rituals, as I said, whether it's a review or whether it's reconnecting with purpose regularly, it will help to keep your strategy alive. All right, well, we are almost at the end of today, and I want to stop sharing the screen in a moment to be able to answer some of your questions that you may have. But there are multiple ways that we can work together, and I wanted to share these multiple ways with you. I really appreciate that so many of you dedicate your time on a monthly basis to coming in and hopefully learning something from our masterclasses. But there are some different ways also that we can work together. And so you can see the programs and workshops that are listed there, and you can jump onto the website to learn a little bit more about those programs. There's also individual and group coaching and mentoring that's offered. And if you are intending to host an event next year and you're looking for an MC or a speaker, then please check out the speaking kit on the website, which will give you some information around the common topics that I can cover in a particular keynote. But of course, always welcome. You're always welcome to let me know what your agenda is, and we can craft something specifically for your organisation. There are, and that little QR code might not be working, but you've come in through our Mighty Network community, which is our community where we really love being able to share our resources with you. So once you finish off with the masterclass today, absolutely hang around the network. There is a bunch of stuff that you'll find in there, including our diagnostic, which will help you to understand which deliberate leader attribute you've got some strengths in, and maybe where you need to do a little bit more work on some of them. There's 8 of those attributes there. Download a chapter of the You Are How You Lead book. As I said, access the resources. There's more information than what you'll ever need there. Always feel free to book in a complimentary check-in, and that just, we can just be able to shoot the breeze a bit on where your team's at and what support you need, particularly going into next year. And then become a member of the community to find out more about our 2025 masterclasses. We'll be kicking off again with those masterclasses in February. So with that, I'm just going to stop the share, and I can see that we've got some Q&As in there. Oh, we've got, has anybody got some, so I know Rebecca's put in consistency. I think that's a word that we were looking at before. If anyone's got any questions, I am going to hang for another 5 minutes or so. So feel free to unmute and I will answer those in real time, or feel free to pop them in the Q&A. It's been a real pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much for joining the masterclass. As I said, I really appreciate that you come in every month and learn a little bit more, and it's always my pleasure to bring you these masterclasses. So thank you very much. And if I don't speak to you before, then obviously have a very safe rest of the year, and we will see you early in 2025. Thanks, everyone.